Welcome to Magic the Gathering for advanced players. Quick deck tech here. I just used this deck to qualify for the weekend, or not the weekend, the finals of the MagicFest Online Season 2. I needed to go 5-0 to get there. This deck really has been performing well for me as people transition into a lot of different Yorion decks, trying to beat the other Yorion decks and that sort of thing. You can slip under the radar. A lot of the I innovated a little bit with the main deck, and I'll talk about that. I think that the sideboard is actually where a lot of the things that I think leveled this deck up appear. But starting with the main deck, Spectral Sailor has been my addition. But so the core of the deck, obviously, Winota. Whenever a non-human creature attacks, you look at the top 6. You can grab any creature, put into play attacking. Well, there are some nasty humans up top. So you have your non-humans down below, and these soldier tokens are not humans. This one's a human, but the other ones are non-human. Some token makers, Spectral Sailor, etc. You look at the top 6, and you can either just kill them by grabbing like Haktos and Kenrith, and that happens a fair amount, or you can grab some Agent of Treacheries. Now, you're kind of at the mercy of what shows up in those top 6, but 6 cards per attacker is a lot. If you just have 3 creatures, you've looked at 18 cards, you're going to probably get some pressure and steal something, like a blocker, for example. So the deck is pretty nasty that way. If decks are just doing their own thing and you're not interrupting what the opponent's doing, there's not really another deck that can go as fast and as big as this deck. So that's one thing. You're going kind of over the top by just being not over the top, but just being faster to the same thing, which is Agent of Treachery ends up being a lot of endgames with Lucas that are out there and that sort of thing. So you don't have Yorion, you have no companion, you don't have Yorion to blink Agent of Treachery, but you can just end the game. You're attacking for 8 chunks of 8 and 10. Haktos has been really, really strong. I started with 1, I increased to 2, I might go to 3 at some point. In fact, right now I've got 1 on the sideboard. But Haktos, if you look at the Luca deck, it's using a lot of just, let me block that with a token. Let me chump that. Let me cycle, make a shark. Let me do my thing, and Elspeth Conquers Death, your thing. Like this thing, it just, not a lot stops it. I mean, you might roll a 3 and they can bounce it with Teferi. Okay, I get to replay it, and now maybe it's not on 3 anymore. They might Shadow the Sky. Okay, but Shadow the Sky is really overworked, and they have an 80-card deck. So you just try to get them to Shadow the Sky to deal with your Winota or whatever, and then you just play Haktos, or you find it and they're dead because it comes in attacking with protection. So that card's been really strong. Against the Obosh decks, it's a 6-1 True Name Nemesis 2/3 of the time. That's been really strong as well. They play a 7-6, you play 6-1 protection from everything that they can do. That tends to be pretty nice. Spectral Sailor was the innovation because I was seeing a lot of there's maybe a few too many Charming Prince in the other version. Things like the 2/3 human that draws a card and gains 3 when it comes in, the Elite Guard Mage. Well, that kind of stuff is pretty clunky, and Spectral Sailor still does something at that spot in the curve for 4 more mana, but it's also something that comes in on the low end of the curve and can actually turn on unexpectedly. Your opponent thinks, okay, I've got them to no cards, they've got 1 mana. With open deck lists is less likely to happen, but whatever. It's hard for them to play around. You're playing more at Flash. And then we'll talk about, once we sideboard, we're going to be such a counterspell heavy kind of focus with all these Dovin's Vetoes. That's nice to have more Flash to play and something to do if they don't happen to play a non-creature spell that you want a Dovin's Veto. So the Spectral Sailors have been nice. Charming Prince, you want to sideboard out if the life gains are relevant in the onward present. You typically want to sideboard out, but it's nice to have as an extra hit. It's a good game 1 card. It gets sideboarded out a lot. Let's talk about, so the mana base, I don't have a black to, you can play a weird Triumph, you can play a Swamp if you're really desperate. It's not worth it. You have Kenrith out unmolested, you're going to win that game often enough. So instead I've got only 1 land that can't cast Haktos, and I could see going away from Fabled Passage and not playing it, but for right now I've got it. And the rest of it's just kind of geared towards, playing your Haktos. And I might also swap a Temple for a red-white one, just so that I've got a little bit easier time casting Haktos. I think this mana base may be a little bit of a holdover from when I only had 1 Haktos, so I may make a few tweaks, but that's the long and the short of it. Now the sideboard is what I think. The list I saw online had a sideboard that was really quite a bit less functional than this, so it had fewer copies of the Dovin's Veto, which I think is so important because this deck is really good at putting your opponent in a spot where they need to Wrath. They need to Cry the Carnarian, whatever their card is. they need to resolve Luca, or they just won't. They're just going to fall behind. That happens so much during the course of a game, and you can play really powerful threats for 3 mana and keep your 2 up, that Dovin's Veto ends up being really good. And they may even set up with Mystical Disputes and other things, but there's no counter war. If they're trying to Wrath, use Dovin's Veto. Their Shadow of the Skies countered, it doesn't matter, they have Mystical Dispute, so it's just so powerful, and it makes the deck a nightmare to play against. I say go 2 mana up. Okay, do I have Raise the Alarm? Do I have Spectral Sailor? Or do I have Dovin's Veto for your critical spell? Sometimes you let the Wrath resolve. They don't Wrath because they don't want to get Dovin's Veto. Okay, then it's not so bad. I can manage it. And what you actually had mana open for was Raise the Alarm. And now you play Winota, and it's just a game over. So that's key. And then I also found this card when I was looking at non-humans that had haste. And I said, okay, I think that with Luca being as popular as it is, and with this deck being, I think, pretty good, you're going to see more Grafdigger's Cages at some point. I think it's possible. And I want to have Grafdigger's Cage Insurance, but I don't want to play a bad card in my deck. Well, a hasty non-human is actually not a bad card in your deck. If it might kill a Glass Casket or a Grafdigger's Cage, that could be quite a good card because it's going to have modes that are helpful. So I was attacking with this, and you're not that depressed to have just a haste, because there's not that much haste. And yeah, you have a Legion Warboss, but there's only 4 copies. If you want to have Sideboard, if you want to have Artifact Destruction, it also plays that mode. That's pretty powerful. So that was a nice find, and it's been good for me. I get to have that Grafdigger's Cage Insurance, especially in an open decklist event, like these CFB online events are open decklist. I had an opponent play 4, Glass Casket in their sideboard. I said, okay, let me grab one of these. Let me grab these, and sure enough, I blew up a Glass Casket, got back my, whatever it was, and it's great. And believe me, you often can get back like a Legion Warboss, and immediately you're cracking in. All right. Aether Gust and Redcap Melee. So the mirror, I want some protection, but also just, look, if they're trying to go faster, then you have some outs, right? If they're trying to just develop the board with elementals, and okay, you can Aether Gust those. It's just versatile, flexible enough that in spots where Dovin, you don't want to over sideboards. You don't want to bring in like 20 cards in every matchup. So often, like against Bant specifically, it's important. And Luca, you don't want to bring in the Aether Gust against Bant and against Luca. So let me give you a sample sideboarding. You play against the typical Luca deck. I would bring in the Haktos. Depending on let's say that they don't have anything that I want, or whatever. Let's say they have it. That they have 4 caskets. I'm going to bring in the 1 Haktos, the 2 Irreverent Revelers, the 2 Disputes, the 4 Vetoes. I'm going to leave it at that. So that's 9 cards we're bringing in. I'm going to take out 2 Charming Prince, all 4 Teferi if they're playing Fires in the Luca deck. So I'm going to play. I'm not trying to actually bounce their stuff or play that game. I'm going to try to actually just have my own counters and overwhelm them. So that's 6 coming out. Hanged Executioner. It's not a card that I need against. They're trying to sweep. If I'm having Revelers come in, I got extra 3s. I'm going to take out the 3 Hanged Executioners, and lastly, I'm going to take out 1 Kenrith because now I've got enough expensive, high casting cost humans. I don't need that last Kenrith. I got the Haktos coming in instead, so that's 9 or 10, whatever. So I'm going to tweak it there again. They may not have the caskets. Maybe I can leave some more stuff in, leave in a Hanged Executioner, maybe a second Kenrith. I can also, in spots where I want to go in more, let's say I look at their list and they've got some red cards. They've actually got a bunch of, Wraths that, whatever. Maybe I want some of this. I can shave a land on the draw. I can think about whether I need, any Kenriths, right? I can think about how, I can open deck lists. I'm going to adjust. I don't like sideboard guides. I'm not going to give you one. I think you want to be a little bit more flexible on the draw sometimes. Peel a land off. Take a Fabled Passage out. Nothing wrong with that. Maybe take, you can think about what land you want to take out. The second Plains is not essential if you ever want to take that out. All right, so sample sideboarding against, Rakdos, that's going to look a little different. Now I'm going to reach for stuff like Redcap Melee, Aether Gust. I'm going to leave those out. Irreverent Revelers is still very nice. They have the ovens. I'll be able to knock those out. Haktos, again, 2/3 of the time, it's going to be protection from their whole deck. I'm certainly going to board that in. And I'm going to take out some of my more expensive cards. I might take out Shave 2 Agent of Treachery. Take out the 4 Teferi. Not really what I'm looking to do. This time I'm going to keep in stuff like this, because now they're playing aggressively. Okay, this lines up well with that. I can cut 1 Spectral Sailor. It's not really about flash, and they might have a pinger for my 1. So I can take out 1 or 2 Spectral Sailor. that sort of thing. I'm taking out 2 Agent of Treachery. I can take out 1 land on the draw again, and I'm going to look to bring those cards in. So that's the deck. I think having a tuned sideboard in standard is super critical. I think that's where I kind of applied my focus. I think my next task is going to be to make sure this mana base is the way it's supposed to be, and make sure I got the right temples in there. I got, do I want to play Fabled Passage or not? I'm going to turn to that next, but even with this mana base, it's perfectly functional. I haven't had many mana problems, so give this deck a test drive. I think you'll be pleased with it. I want to mention the sponsor for this channel, these videos, is Channel Fireball. Happens to be the same event organizer that's running Channel Fireball's MagicFest Online. That's what I've played this in. That's what I'm going to be playing in. Go to my.cfbevents.com. You will be able to see what events are coming up. It's real easy. It's a couple clicks away. See what the schedule is. See what the entry fee is. If you do sign up, use promo code SPURLING. 10% of your purchase will go to a charitable donation focused on COVID-19 relief. For me, for that Spurling code, that means that 10% of your purchase is going to a food bank that's local to me and local to CFB, since we both are in the California's Bay Area. So please check that out, my.cfbevents.com, and use promo code Spurling if you do, and get some of that charitable giving at no additional cost to you. So I appreciate that.